I didn't realize that I started to, especially with the skin.
You all join palms. And repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. Keeping the palms joined. Put palms down. All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you all for showing up. Nice to see you. Obviously, nothing better to do on a Saturday morning than show up here, so I'm glad you're all here. Anyone here for the first time? Anybody? First time? What brings you here? You didn't know when I asked you to raise your hand. I called on you, sorry. What brings you here?
I was looking for a communal meditation space.
Nice. Well, I know a lot of these people, so I'm warning you, I'd be very careful. glad you're here. What else? First time. Saw a couple hands back here. Now you're hiding out, I'm sure. Who else is here for the first time and why? Yeah.
My friend Steve invited me, and this was the whole months to recalibrate.
Yeah. Well, glad you're here. And what did your friend Steve tell you to get you here?
It's a good experience.
Right on. Well, we're glad you're here. Anyone else first time here? Want to share why? Or anybody keeps coming back? Want to share why? Why show up? San Diego, beautiful outside, lots of stuff to do. Why end up here?
Sangha, community.
Sangha, community. What else? Yeah.
You give great lessons.
I give great lessons. Thanks. I try.
It's for me, during meditation, there's a moment where you direct yourself back. This is like the physical directing yourself back. It's like a reset.
For sure. Yeah. Thank you. What else? Why keep showing up?
I'm a better mom.
A better mom.
Yeah, I've been coming 5 years, and I've learned about myself and my limits and my way of teaching my kids without making it crazy.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. I keep coming, and they kick me out anyway. Go see Jeff.
They know it's Saturday
Not
morning.
Jeff's day.
Get out of here. They want free time as they're headed already into their teenage years. Yeah. We should actually be worried about what's going on at your house right now.
I'm letting you go.
11 to 12. Yeah. Just tell them one Saturday we're going to move the entire meditation there, and we'll see how that goes. Anybody else want to share why they're here before we get started with the meditation practice? Yeah.
Reconnect with myself and others.
Reconnect with yourself and others. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. And as always, I ask this question very often, not necessarily, that everybody has to share, but it's always a good reminder for you to ask and answer yourself. Hey, why do I keep showing up? Why is this practice important to me? Why would I come here when there's so many other things to do? And the reason I like to ask people to ask themselves that is just at moments in your life when you find yourself lost, disconnected, confused, just kind of feeling like you need to re-inspire or start or build your practice again. You always want to come back to the intentions of why you show up. Because as we know, whether you're here for the first time or been showing up a lot, that life will continue to bring you challenges and difficulties. And it's at that moment in all of these challenges and difficulties that we want to come back and recommit ourselves to a practice. When I say come back, I don't necessarily mean here. I don't really care where you go. You don't even have to go anywhere, but just come back to your practice, come back to your meditation, come back to your Buddhist practice, come back to your breath is really what it's about. And ultimately, you begin to see that your mind, your heart, your physical body, that's your temple. And then it doesn't matter where you are, because everything you need to find a sense of peace and happiness is with you every moment. Now, since most of us fail miserably at that, myself included, we'll still be here to practice together for those of you who haven't quite figured all that out. So, all right, so we'll start with a meditation. To those joining virtually, welcome, glad you're here. There's a couple comments already as to why your guided meditations help stay grounded in fundamentals. Benton, to keep the beginner's mind and to learn. Yeah, for sure. Thank you both for sharing, and anyone else virtually joining us, feel free to say hello. So we'll start with the meditation practice for those who might be sitting for the first time. A couple things to tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you, right? You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice. You don't ask yourself, is this working or not working? Are you doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit, we're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. And this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. Posture, you want to be comfortable however you're seated. If you are in a cushion, often it helps slide into the front third, pushing the stomach forward, allows the back to straighten. If you're on a bench or chair or whatever you're sitting in, try to sit up straight if comfortable. Relaxing the shoulders. Hands are on the knees or lap, whatever's comfortable. I will guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. Most important, do not expect anything. We're just going to sit and breathe. Starting with your eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed, whatever's comfortable. Start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. Eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. Expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath.
I know, right? So now I have to go back to Tuesday. Yeah, they looked at my eyes. They were like, oh, you're still alive. They should. So we're all this is one thing. Well, basically, I had to go to the optometrist, and I thought they had in August was the show. They were like, "Oh, you can go to work fraction." So I had to go back, get dilated the day before. So like, you should be fine by the time that surgery. Yeah, because I was like, "Don't get here within 24 hours," but apparently it's not a guarantee. So mine is just a little over 24 hours. Your eyes are still. I literally just contacted her through traffic, and I was like, I like 90 minutes here or whatever, and they like have to right along the road, like, I have to pick it up. And I said to him, I'm sure you know, it's like work at a coffee shop up there, because it's under the way. It'll take a while. Oh, kombucha ice cream.
Breathing in, follow breath in. Breathing out. Follow breath out.
I am going to a little pop-up day later tonight.
Yeah, we are just like, we're at the box. And my boss, like an hour, 2 extra minutes.
Let's see, what time is that?
5:15 is
Are
early.
you definitely going?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know, I'm gonna go shower this pop-up. I have a day pop-up too. Nice. I'm ready to that. All right.
Oh, yeah, this is so exciting. Now, yeah, he's good about it.
Where's your happy hour today?
No, just really,
All right, so you want that?
yeah.
All right, well, I'll do that later.
Okay, I'm going.
Bye.
I'm really following.
Thank you.
Letting go of expectations. Letting go of judgments from the practice. Just sitting. Breathing. keeping the mind alert. Aware of each sound. Each thought. Each physical sensation. Yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. And with the body still, resting. And the speech quiet, aware of all sounds. The mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. And no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. Once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And when ready, slowly opening the eyes. Slowly beginning to move. Most important with the practice of meditation is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. Realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how we sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It has everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awaken. He was a human being, no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. What that means, very simply, for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in and where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens. More reactions. That's what we get. This practice is simply learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to every other 20-minute period of your life. So all we're working on is closing the gap to the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. This practice is not easy. It is not necessarily fun. It is not an escape, as often people think it is. It is direct perception into the present moment. If If your life is a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess, meditation won't fix it. It helps you become aware of why your life is a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess, so you can then make changes. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's sitting, breathing, becoming aware of everything you think, everything you say, and everything you do. And understanding how that impacts your life and the life of those around you. Once we stop trying to change, fix, control, manipulate everything and everyone around us, and we work on changing our mind and our reaction to the world around us, life gets simpler. But it takes time. It's very difficult to go through our days without allowing every little thing that goes differently from planned to bother us. And in reality, majority of what's going on around us all day long has absolutely nothing to do with us. But we take on all these thoughts and ideas and we bring them into our lives, into our minds, and they torture us. We had a great discussion Thursday night around forgiveness. And really beautiful to listen to people share their experiences around forgiveness, what it means to them, how their inability to forgive impacts them and the life of those around them. But what I heard constantly in the discussion was people talking about the stories that they've created in their head over something that happened like 40 years ago. Now, some of the people there were in their 20s, so it didn't happen to them 40 years ago. But some of them were not in their 20s, and it did happen to them 40 years ago. So, and the reality is things happen. This morning, yesterday, 40 years ago, whatever it is. And when it happened, it happened. And our ability to tell ourselves a story about it for the next 40 years or 4 years or whatever it is what causes so much suffering. And our inability to stay present and just be with life as it arises is a reason we suffer tremendously. The Buddha called this dukkha, suffering, discomfort, angst, dissatisfaction. Life working out differently from how we expected it to be. And so much of our life is that way. But when we stop trying to control everything around us, and we just experience it, get to know what the present moment is. Because in most cases, there's nothing wrong with the present moment. The only thing that's wrong with the present moment is a story you're telling yourself about what you want the present moment to be like. This is your suffering. This is what most people do all day long. Roam around with an idea of how they want life to be. And create a construct of how every moment is supposed to happen. And that's impossible to have every moment happen how you want it to. So can we just be with life as it arises? And to me, any great spiritual practice begins with recognizing what each moment does to you. Not what you can do to change and fix each moment. Because as you're trying to change and fix the present moment, you're no longer in the present moment. You're stuck in yourself, your pride, your ego, wanting to control things. And so the Buddhist teachings around non-attachment deeply apply to every moment of our life with regards to experiencing each moment, not attaching to our story of past, present, or future. And if you drop the story completely and you shatter this box of how you think life is supposed to go, nothing is ever right and nothing is ever wrong. It's just what's going on. And can we embrace that? And the closer you get to learning to embrace the present moment, the less suffering you'll experience. But if you spend your entire life, which so many people do, wishing things had been differently, you're going to suffer tremendously your entire life. And that doesn't mean that everything that's happened has been wonderful. It's been incredibly painful and traumatic. And same thing going forward. Your life going forward will be filled with beautiful moments and painful moments, happiness and sadness. This is our heart and mind's reaction to life as it exists. But just observe those emotions. Understand the impermanence of them, that they will change. And keep finding gratitude in everything you do. And your suffering will decrease drastically. So with that, I'll pause. For me, I really just prefer to respond to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything that's on your mind. And we'll use the rest of our, I didn't even finish. And we'll use the rest of our brief time this morning to respond to Katie's questions. And to those virtual, feel free to chime in. Again, welcome. There's a chat box on your screen somewhere. Feel free to share any questions or thoughts you have virtually, and I'll do my best to respond to those as well. So any questions? Yes, Katie.
I'm just going to make a comment that I felt like this was a really great practice for me because you have or I create a story in my mind of like what this is going to be like and sit and meditate, and then hearing outside noises.
What outside noises?
and then I began to judge myself because I felt like I was eavesdropping. But then I was like, I was able to recognize like these are just things that are arising in consciousness and things are just happening, and it was a really good practice to kind of let that go and just say that's just something else that's going on in the present, and I can just come back to the breath. So it's a simple example of how we could potentially put expectations on other bigger things in life and not catch it. Whereas I felt like this was a very obvious example for me.
Yeah.
On not to judge and just to sit, and those things are just arising.
For sure. Yeah, beautiful. And like I said, I still have no idea what you're talking about. But I do know where we're all going for a potluck and happy hour. Apparently at the Hillcrest Brewing Company. Around 5 o'clock. So we'll see you there. And I did make a very conscious decision to, and those who've known me long enough, to either address it immediately or not at all, knowing that somebody else was going to bring it up. But I was also just trying to model for you, which I knew would fail eventually, that it's like, even in my post-meditation talk, I didn't even address it because it's done. I mean, I love what you said, and I'm glad you addressed it because somebody would have anyways, and I think you did it so perfectly. But it really is like, it's just stuff around us. And that's it. And that's life. Life is just stuff around you. And you can either make it your own stuff or not. Yeah, Summer.
I just find it was just going what you said was such a beautiful analogy of how life is, and it reminded me of when I lived in Hillcrest. I had this really charismatic neighbor, and I just remember one day we were woken up at 2 o'clock in the morning. This homeless man was like taking rocks and throwing them on cars and breaking windows, and he's constantly like, welcome to urban living, right? And so it also reminded me of when I went to this meditation in La Jolla, where I thought it was going to be so perfect. It's on the rooftop looking at the ocean. It's this binaural kept going. Really, like, I'm like, oh my gosh, and then it sounded like they were like moving furniture in the next room, and the lady that thought it was so sweet, she's like, I felt so bad, and I said, no, this is life. Life goes up, like, this is a perfect analogy for life.
Yeah.
Like, we should, I mean, think of people in New York City trying to meditate, or, you know?
Yeah.
So, but then I did have a question too, sorry, I'm really, hyper.
You're good.
So I was there for Thursday night, and it was so great because we talked about forgiveness. And one of the things I got the compassion because of anger, and then you also mentioned generosity, and what was the third?
Yeah, so the three, thank you for sharing everything, by the way. The three poisons, which is the second noble truth, the root cause of suffering, is greed, anger, and ignorance. And we overcome greed with the practice of generosity. We overcome anger with the practice of compassion. And we overcome ignorance with the practice of wisdom. So these are the three ways that we work on overcoming the causes of suffering, again, often referred to as the three poisons, or specifically the second noble truth.
And where would resentment come in?
Where would resentment come in? It would come under greed, anger, and ignorance. You're welcome. Yeah, the other thing I'll say about resentment is, again, resentment is really also tied up in our wanting to control or change something or someone for how they are or what they've done. So it has a lot to do with our inability to just be present and understand that everybody's on their own journey, creating their own chaos, just like we are. So, yeah. Other questions? Yeah.
It's not really today's thing, but if you have an animal, as I do, okay, and it's in the process of possibly dying, it has cancer, I don't know where I come in. Do I stop the suffering, you know, or do I not cause harm?
Sure. So the question is, when you're in the situation you're in with regards to an animal who has cancer and close to dying, your question is, do you stop the suffering or do you not cause harm? And this is a really difficult situation to be in and with, and I'm sure many, if not all of us in this room, have been through something very similar. As a dog lover myself, and one who has a dog, and have gone through that with dogs and cats as well. It's not fun. It's really painful for us. And so I wish you well on this journey that you're experiencing. And the question around, you're looking at the Buddhist teachings on the precepts of, to refrain from lying, killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, and intoxicants, or specifically, it's really non-harming, often said non-killing. And so to me, your question is around, what do I do? And I often look at Buddhist teachings as a guide, not concrete yes, no answers. Underneath all of these teachings and practices is the intention. The intention in your mind and in your heart. Not so much, have I lied, have I killed, have I stolen, etc. Explore the intention behind it, right? The animal, your dog, is in pain and suffering. And that's it. And in your mind, you have the ability to alleviate that pain and suffering or prolong it. But the inevitable with your dog that has cancer, with every one of us in this room, we all know the end game. The Buddha taught very clearly, there is birth, there is aging, there is sickness, and there is death. And, couple things I'll say. One, I want to tell you, I'm saying this so I don't forget, so somebody remind me if I do forget, but if you haven't heard, I want to tell you about the life story of the child right before he was born as Siddhartha Gautama. So somebody remind me to make sure I tell that story. But there's a dear friend of mine who runs he was actually here. Many of you may have seen him years ago, Koshin. He runs the New York Zen Center for Contemplative Care, does a ton of hospice work, beautiful heart, beautiful individual, Zen priest. We were talking one time about hospice work, and he told me a story about what he found so fascinating was that very often the people, it's their time to go, but they stay around for everybody else. And very often at that moment that somebody actually leaves the room for a few moments is the moment they go. This was just his one experience, one story to me. And it made me think about death in a way that we want people to stay forever. And even when they're ready to go, we're not ready very often to not let them go. They are past ready to go. They often want to go, but they stick around because we don't want them to. So there is no right or wrong answer to your question. I'm definitely not going to give you a, hey, turn to page 17 and do this, right? Sometimes loving people and animals looks very different than what we might think. The story that I was going to tell, which I just told about a week ago or so, is that there's what's called the Jataka tales. And the Jataka tales are kind of like Aesop's fables. They're stories. And the Jataka tales tell the stories of the past lives of the Buddha. And this one story is that in the past life, just prior to being born as Siddhartha Gautama, right? So again, we're in India 2,500 years ago. They all believed in rebirth, reincarnation, continuation of consciousness, whatever you want to call it. But this whole one life and then heaven or hell would have been really weird to them 2,500 years ago. Today, this whole idea of rebirth and reincarnation is really weird to most people today. But keep in mind, at that time, that was just what everybody believed in. So this child, they were out, they were playing, maybe 12, 14 years old, I don't know. And they came across a mother bear. And the cubs, baby cubs, she had just given birth, and the baby cubs were really they were starving. The mother was malnourished. And the child realized that if the mother bear didn't get food, that all these cubs were going to die. So the child told all his friends, go get help. And all the kids ran away. The child then fed himself to the mother bear. So she had enough nourishment to feed the cubs. Now, a little asterisk for those who might take this literally. Do not try this at home. Do not feed yourself to bears. If you're brand new to Buddhism, I don't teach to feed yourself to bears, right? But understand what the intention was here. And again, it's a story. And the story is that in the actual then rebirth, that child was born as Siddhartha Gautama, who became the Buddha. That there was such a deep level of understanding of the continuation of this consciousness and beyond what we can even really imagine as just regular folks going through our days. So there's a lot of depth there. And very often when people are ready to go, they're ready to go. And very often we are not ready for that. So do what we can to prepare ourselves for people and animals to go. And it breaks our hearts no matter when it happens. You know, whenever we lose them, if it's tomorrow, if it's a year from now, it's going to shatter us. So, yeah. What else? Questions, thoughts? Yeah.
Kind of ties into what you were just talking about. couple weeks ago, I was here and I asked about non-attachment and something that is a complicated concept, at least for me, but something that you talked about was that kind of naturally out of following that principle falls unconditional love. And like, I kind of get it in, kind of a nebulous way, but I'm interested in hearing kind of more about that discussion.
Sure. So the practice of non-attachment, which again is really one of these core fundamental Buddhist teachings, I often say, just to preface a little bit for those who maybe haven't heard this, is that very often the teaching around non-attachment, people will read it, and when they ask questions about it, they'll say detached or unattached, and very often there's this idea that non-attachment is like a cutting off or a severing of. And to me, that's when I hear the word detached, that's what it means, like to cut off. Non-attached is actually endless, unconditional, beautiful love. That you're not attached to controlling the outcome of anybody else's lives. Non-attachment is that you're not attached to controlling the outcome of anybody else's life. That means you truly love them for who and how they are. It doesn't mean what they're doing is healthy or good for them. It doesn't mean what they're doing isn't harming you or others. But non-attachment is understanding that each person has their own karmic journey, and they're going to make their own choices. Children are a great example of non-attachment at all these different stages, because obviously if your child is 5 years old, you're not just like, yo, you're on your own. Right? I'm not attached, I love you. Welcome to the world. But that 5-year-old then is going to become 15, potentially. And at 15, good luck. All the control you try to have over them won't really matter. Because as soon as that 15-year-old walks out the door, if they make it from 5 to 15, they're out the door. Same thing if you're 45. Been in love with somebody for 20 years. 45 years old, that person wakes up and goes to sleep, next to you or not, with their own mind, their own thoughts, their own path, their own journey. And your two journeys maybe have come together. And you're on a journey together. But on this journey together, you're still two individuals. And you're not attached to trying to control them. You're loving them for who and how they are, and how their journey matches your journey, or aligns with your journey, or is side by side with your journey, and that creates your journey together. And you could always choose to no longer be on that journey, but they're still on their own. And can you love them for that? Where very often in relationships, right, I can only speak for myself, not anybody else here, because I'm sure none of you have ever tried to control anyone else in a relationship, or wanted them to be a certain way, or expected them to be a certain way, or wished they were a certain way, or tried to change them or fix them or help them or correct them because you know what the best way is. They have their way. Your choice to stay with that or not, but still their way. And to me, this is non-attachment, is to actually just love them. So, and I can say that to you every month for about 10 years, and each time it'll hit differently. Each time it'll turn something differently. That's what, to me, the beauty of the Dharma is it's early on, we're learning these concepts, and they're kind of just flying around in our heads and our hearts, and they're like, yeah, this kind of makes sense, but I'm just not there. And they take time. They really do. Because the unenlightened practices that most of us have been doing our whole lives, really all of us, I just didn't want to insult anyone who might be enlightened in the room here. We've all been doing the opposite of what I just described, if we're being truly honest with ourselves, for most of our lives. So what this is doing now is contradicting everything we've done our whole life. That's why they refer to Buddhism as being against the stream. It's against the stream of how we have lived most of our lives. So it's going to be challenging and difficult and make us question everything about our life. and realize like, oh, wait a minute, maybe I'm not doing it right. Maybe I'm the problem. So, hope that's helpful for today. Thank you. I saw another hand. Katie, yeah.
You had given an example before about non-attachment to material things that I thought was really interesting, and I think it was like getting a coffee, and you may love getting your coffee a certain way, and you're attached to having your coffee a certain way, and if you don't get your coffee that way, you it impacts you, and it made me think of gratitude also. So can you talk a little bit maybe about the connection between like gratitude for just having a coffee, to get coffee, versus like that attachment component?
Yeah, I think that when we have gratitude towards any physical thing, object, coffee, or person, or place, or when we have gratitude towards anything or anyone in our lives, it, I think, helps to cut through the attachments that we carry, because attachment means we're wanting things to be a certain way. Gratitude is we're just appreciating how things are. And often I use examples like coffee and food and socks and all these silly little things that are meaningless to us that we're really hung up on. There's a lot of people in this room that are really pissed off if your coffee isn't made the right way. Who gets really bothered if you go I didn't even finish it. You want to share on that? I love the honesty.
More than any unknown substance, thing, if it's not just so, and if it's not at the time, if it's delayed by a little bit, it's not cool.
Yeah.
And to relate it to meditation, actually, one of the things that actually helped me get a regular morning meditation practice was that my teacher said, or our leader conveyor said, get your coffee and then get to your cushion.
Yeah.
And I thought I had to wait till after the cushion to get my coffee. And after I was able to get my coffee and then get to the cushion, then I was able to meditate daily for many, many years, which I've sadly not kept up with, but that made a huge difference to me.
Yeah.
So even my meditation practice got caught up with how my coffee was.
I love it. And tell me your name again.
Anna.
Anna. I love the honesty, the openness, the just like willingness to say, if my coffee's not right, it's just not cool. And I think that a big part of this practice begins with recognizing like how much these little things, I'm a coffee drinker, I don't want to downplay the importance of coffee, but how much these little things really do throw us off. And then when we're faced with like real challenges, with death, with loss, with loved ones that we lose in whatever way, when we face real things, the coffee's not real, right? But when we face those things and we don't know why we can't handle it properly, it helps to know that we can't even handle our coffee being made the wrong way. And, go ahead. Yeah, please.
So I have found that I can stay present with really big, difficult things. I was at my father's passing was an extremely peaceful and meaningful experience. My daughter's passing was painful but peaceful. I find that petty things in life disturb my equilibrium significantly more, and I feel like that's something wrong.
Yeah.
I feel like what kind of person can pass through the death of a parent peacefully and calmly and get so incredibly agitated over coffee? I feel like a bad person.
Yeah. Man, the church bells rang and we're out of time, but I'd love to like dig into this a lot more. All I'm going to say on that, for those virtual maybe didn't hear it, is what Anna was saying is that she was able to painfully and peacefully work through the death of her father, work through the loss of, did you say dog or animal? Dog. To work through those things peacefully and painfully, but that the coffee is just, it's a deal breaker, and that you think you're a bad person because of it. So I'll just touch on that briefly before we close, is that one, you're not a bad person, okay? You are a person who gets agitated very easily by little things. That doesn't make you a bad person. You are a person who experienced pain peacefully when you lost loved ones. That doesn't make you a good person. It makes you a person who has different experiences to different situations, as we all do. The beginning, I think, with this situation is to understand that it's not about being a good person or a bad person. It's about understanding our mind is a crazy thing. And it is triggered and influenced and impacted and every moment of our entire life. From the moment we are born, even before then, to now. And to think that all of these experiences that you've gone through your entire life, or just, I should say, the fact that all of these experiences that you've gone through your entire life have just created what you just described. And that's not good or bad or right or wrong. But I will say that there's my hope, not even in comparing the two. And that's what I would suggest dropping, is not like I'm bad because of this and good because of this, but working on understanding, why do these things agitate me so much? I can see why you would kind of judge yourself if you compare them. But I'm saying drop the comparison of them and just recognize that all of us in this room get agitated by things differently. And the practice is to understand, why is this agitating me? And to work with that. And that's something that all of us can do. But again, it starts with the awareness. Awareness of what agitates us, awareness of what triggers us, awareness of what really bothers us, whether it's seemingly important or not. Because you can even drop that reference. Well, this matters, this doesn't matter. And I know I say things like that all the time, you know, as far as things that are traumatic versus just everyday commonplace things. But everyday commonplace things can also be very traumatic. So again, we're kind of out of time, so I want to wrap up, but I think it's good for us to, you know, continue on this dialogue of understanding what triggers us so easily, because we're all there, and if we can cut through that, we'll save ourselves a lot of suffering. So, thank you all for sharing. I'm gonna we'll join palms, and I'm gonna close. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to those who need it most. All right, a few quick announcements before you all head out. Thank you for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma bum. We opened up this temple 17 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those of us who lead, we're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers, we're not looking for students. We're just practitioners. We do our best to take our understanding of Buddhist teachings and put it into terms for those who show up. Every night we have different practices going on, different people leading from a different Buddhist tradition. Every Thursday, 5 o'clock, we do a food redistribution program. We prepare gourmet peanut butter and jelly meals, and we head downtown and pass it out to people who sleep on the streets. So for me, it's a really beautiful practice of working on gratitude and realizing that every moment you think your life is rough and your life sucks and everything's going wrong, when you spend time with people who are sleeping on a sidewalk every night, it tends to put things into perspective. So other than that, there's always something going on. Check the website, for different events and things like that. If anybody wants to stick around and help garden or sweep up or clean up, there's also a list by the door of some indoor tasks for cleaning that could be done. 17 years in, we still have never hired a cleaning crew. And what that means is we use the temple, we take care of the temple. So whether it's today, tomorrow, sometime during the week or whatever, we always appreciate everybody figuring out how you can help take care of the space that we all benefit and use from, because if nobody takes care of it, it ends up like the giving tree. If you don't know Shel Silverstein's Giving Tree, then read it, because it's a life changer. So thank you all for being here. Buddha for you is there if you need anything, and I wish you well.
I need to sit for